Mixed martial arts. Some call it the world's purest sport, as winning and losing has nothing to do with handling an inanimate object. Two men or two women enter the cage and fight, utilizing every move in their skill set. Wrestling, boxing, jiu-jitsu, judo, Muay Thai, Sambo, the list is endless. Two enter, one wins. I have been an MMA fan for 13 years now. I had known about the sport for a long time, but it wasn't until The Ultimate Fighter jumped into the time slot following WWE Monday Night Raw that I really jumped fully on board. Ever since then, I've been hooked. I'd study every fighter's win-loss records whenever I had free time. I quickly amassed an encyclopedic knowledge of every UFC event that had occurred up to that point. And I played a ton of MMA video games, most of which were dog shit. The earliest MMA video games feel like they were made by people who weren't fans of the sport at all. Why is Chuck Liddell a southpaw in this game? How the fuck is it okay to book the 6'3", 240-pound heavyweight Andrei Arlovski against the 5'9", 155-pound lightweight Yves Edwards? This game was made in 2004, far beyond the Wild West days of the UFC where there were no weight classes. In Pride FC on PlayStation 2, you can literally hit your opponent with a fucking Hurricane Rana right out of the WWE arena. The games were serviceable, but a far cry from good. But then came video game developer Yuke's, famous for the WWE SmackDown series, on which I created a nearly 90-minute documentary that you can watch by clicking the link in the description. Yuke's changed the landscape of MMA video games in May of 2009 with the release of UFC 2009 Undisputed. Or UFC Undisputed 2009. I don't know. It was always hard to tell where they wanted the Undisputed to be placed in the title. The Undisputed series brought a brand new level of intricacy to the digital cage with an in-depth career mode, expansive roster with accurate stats, abilities, and weight classes for each fighter, as well as online play. I mentioned the career mode there for a second, and as the title of this video explains, that's what I really want to jump into here. The career mode has never, ever, ever been great in any of the UFC games. Not a single one. And there are specific reasons why. Any longtime MMA fan knows what it's like watching a fighter's entire career from start to finish. There's the rise to prominence, highlight reel finishes, crushing defeats, the title fights, and the heated rivalries that can often lead to the ultimate spectacle in MMA feuds, the Trilogy. Some of the greatest feuds in the sport have led to trilogies, a trio of fights between two rivals. There's Fedor versus Nogueira, Chuck Liddell versus Randy Couture, we've got GSP versus Matt Hughes,
I'm not impressed by your performance,
Frankie Edgar versus Gray Maynard, the list goes on and on. The rule of 3 is like an MMA sacrament. You fight 3 times, and whoever gets their hand raised twice is often looked at as the superior fighter and the winner of the war. This rule is almost never broken. Almost never. It is extremely, extremely rare for a feud to stretch to 4 fights. I can think of only 2 occasions it's ever happened, and in both situations the 4th fight was completely unnecessary. So why is it in every UFC game I've ever played, career mode pits me against the same guy 4 or 5 times? Why can't they get this right? I'm not kidding, it happens all the time. It's like there's no algorithm whatsoever to keep it from occurring. In my most recent career mode, I was a light heavyweight. After amassing a very respectable record, I was paired with Jon Jones. We had a close fight, but he wound up finishing me in the last minute of the last round. I was pissed. After a few more fights, I was happy to get paired with him again, looking for revenge, which I exacted in the form of a guillotine choke in the first round. Fast forward, the big Trilogy fight takes place, I knock him out cold, and in my mind, I'm the better man. I'm creating stories in my imagination about how everyone will remember me winning the war against Jon Jones. Fast forward again, I win the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship, and in my first defense, I'm fighting Jon Jones. Are you serious? I'm not kidding. This is every single UFC game. It doesn't have to be like this. We don't have to fight the same guys 4 and 5 times. Fight Night Round 4 came out in 2009. That's nearly 10 years ago. And they had the career mode shit on lockdown. It's simple. In Fight Night Round 4, we're presented with a calendar. It's our choice when we fight, and it's our choice who we fight. We can be impatient and take a fight on 3 weeks' notice, but that gives us way less time to train and better our fighters' skills. On the other end, skipping a month or 2 or 3 because we don't like the rankings forecast can hurt our fighters' popularity, or even trigger a deterioration to our skill set. We choose when, and we choose who. There's a pool of anywhere between 5 and 15 fighters ready to sign their portion of the bout agreement whenever we're ready, which completely ameliorates the issue of opponent repetition. I haven't even touched on opponents being too easy or too hard in the UFC games, but that pops up from time to time as well. Fight Night Round 4 had an answer to that before it was even a question. We can pad our record and challenge some bum deep down in the rankings for a quick win and easy training, or we can go balls deep and challenge a true killer way higher than us in the rankings, just trying to shock the world and make a statement. If EA had this shit figured out in 2009 with Fight Night Round 4, why haven't they been able to implement this concept even one time across the UFC games spanning from 2014 to 2019? It's incredibly frustrating. And you know what else is frustrating? The fact that the matchmaking in UFC 3, their most recent effort, appears to be completely random from time to time. Again, we'll use a real-life example. A perfectly normal and common trajectory can see a fighter ascend the rankings, earn a title shot, lose, work their way back up, gain another shot, win and reign over the division, face a shocking loss, earn their way back, and reclaim the crown. It happens all the time. The key word there that I used several times was earn. In my most recent career mode run, which is the same career mode where I've got my 5th fight with John Jones looming on the horizon, I've encountered some of the worst, most nonsensical matchmaking I've ever seen. After capturing the title, I got starched in my first defense and was quickly put back to square one. I figured, man, a win or 2 puts me back in line, let's get to it. It never came. I was a former champion on a 5-fight win streak, all of which were finishes, and I had no title shot in sight. I eventually got submitted, which completely killed my momentum, only to have my only option for the next fight be a title shot. We as players shouldn't have to sit there cooking up storylines in our imagination to make up for this dog shit booking. And that's what I do. I'm literally sitting there playing the game going like, yeah, DC injured his knee, so I'm stepping in on short notice. Even though I'm coming off a loss, I'm the only guy who's willing to take the fight, and I've got a score to settle with the guy who's got the title. Yeah, that's what it is. It's horrible. Why do we have to do that? My last complaint before I slam my head into the keyboard and give myself more CTE than Chris Liebman could shake a stick at is just the lack of evolution in career mode in general. They're constantly finding new ways to have us do the same shit over and over to improve our wrestling skills or our boxing skills. Over time, they have taken the practice portions out completely, though, in favor of tedious menu after tedious menu, which isn't much of a step up. How about we pivot away from the same old, and bring in some new ideas? What if there was a mode in the game where we were allowed to create our own promotion and compete with the UFC? Or just run the UFC? We could negotiate with new talent, book matchups, sign TV and pay-per-view deals with networks and distributors. We could do it all and then either choose to play the card we've booked or simulate the fights and watch them unfold across our own calendar. Think of it as Grey Dog Software's WMMA series combined with the GM mode from WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2006. It would be fantastic. That's going to do it for me, guys. I hope this video was fun to watch, and I hope it's clear that I don't enjoy complaining about these things. I'm just a big MMA fan, I'm a big video game fan, and I want to do whatever I can to help contribute to making these games better. I want to see some progress be made on the MMA video game landscape, you know what I'm saying? I hope by some miracle this video and other videos like it get spread around the EA offices, and by some miracle they're like, you know what, god damn it, they're right, we can do better. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you check out the history of SmackDown, which I talked about earlier in this video, and make sure you check out the history of Mortal Kombat, which is my 5-part documentary series covering the entire history of Mortal Kombat from start to finish. I love you, and I'll see you next time.